Jazz is a music that has a lot of improvisation, a lot of individuality of expression and personal tone. Rhythm is a very important part, rhythm that mostly derives from Africa. Syncopated, swinging rhythms, polyrhythms, one rhythm on top of each other. Once in a while, polymeters, several meters going on simultaneously. It originated in the American South, around New Orleans in the early part of the 20th century, quickly spread north and west, and then went all around the world. Cuban jazz sounds quite different than American jazz, which sounds quite different than Brazilian jazz, which sounds quite different than South African jazz. So it's a worldwide art form that this country created and nurtured and helped spread all around the world. Among the reasons that jazz has found such a responsive audience around the world is that it embodies extremely admirable values, values that are also very cherished here in America. Values such as freedom of expression. In fact, Duke Ellington wrote in one of his unpublished manuscripts in the margin, if jazz means anything, it is freedom of expression. And the reason it embodies freedom of expression is that as a performer in jazz, you're given a lot of latitude how to express yourself. There may be a melody you have to play at the beginning, but when you improvise, you're absolutely expressing your own musical tastes, your own musical approach, your own musical style, and musical identity. Jazz embodies innovation. From the get-go, jazz was filled with innovation. Louis Armstrong was one of the great innovators in the history of American culture. And there's just a series of innovations that have driven jazz in less than a century to recapitulate, in some ways, the entire history of Western art music. A series of styles, each one built on innovations. Jazz embodies cultural diversity. You can see from the beginning in New Orleans, which was a very polyglot city, with a lot of give and take among the various ethnic groups. There was no residential segregation in New Orleans back then. No air conditioning. Everybody's windows were open and people were listening to what the neighbors, who might have been a different color or ethnicity, were playing or singing. They picked it up. There was a lot of interchange, and you had people of African descent, you had people of various European countries' descent, you had Mexicans, you had interchange with Cuba. So the music from the get-go was a music of cultural diversity, and you see that today. We have every conceivable group in the United States involved in this music. Jazz embodies creative collaboration. You can't have a jazz band making new music without collaborating closely with one another, listening very closely, respecting the other's contributions. It may or may not be a true democracy, but it is an art form where the contributions of every person matter. Everybody gets a voice in a good jazz ensemble. As well, jazz is a music of individuality. One of the highest values that the music connotes is finding your own sound. People don't value a sound-alike person. They value a player or a singer who has developed her or his own sound. Growing up in East St. Louis, Miles Davis's trumpet teacher said, "Stop trying to sound like Harry James," who was a trumpet star of the time. He said, "Find your own style." And this is a credo of just about every jazz musician. They want to sound like, not like somebody else, they want to sound like themselves.